Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you for joining me once again. I'm Stirling Cooper, and I have with me today the ruggishly handsome, charming young man known as
Justin Marc.
How you doing, my man?
Thanks for having me on, Stirling.
Oh, you're very welcome, man. It was good. We sort of crossed paths on we popped up on each other's recommended YouTubes.
Yeah.
And I was like, this kid's cool. I'm looking through some of your stuff. I was like, damn, this guy has more receipts than a whole lot of dating coaches combined that I've seen for a number of years.
Yeah. I mean, I started this stuff when I was if we want to really get back to it, I pretty much started, PUA game when I was 14 without even knowing what I was fucking doing.
Damn.
As crazy as it sounds. And then I got really into actually studying the material when I was 17. Right. And so I'm going to be 26 this year. So I'm pretty much a decade into it. And in that time, I've traveled to 50 plus countries, probably worked with at least 1,000 plus clients in person. Right. I've got a program next week here in Toronto. And, it's taken me all over the world. It's introduced me to a network of super high level dudes. And obviously, literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of intimate experiences with hot girls. But really, it's the cool dudes I met too. Right. I look at my network. It's just really successful men. Influencers, YouTubers, other top dating coaches. Last night I was on a call with David Bond and we're talking just about internet privacy or today, I don't know if you know Bradicus. I was texting today, right? My network is just super high level dudes and really hot fucking girls. And it's awesome because you learn these skills, you can recreate this in any city you go to in the world. Last year I was living in Mexico City before I had this crazy media scandal that got us into Forbes Mexico and all these other publications. Crazy shit, right? We were pretty much meeting so many women in Mexico City that the local politicians assumed we were doing something illegal, right? And they started accusing us of crimes that we didn't commit. There's no accusations, but they're these guys are obviously doing something illegal because they're filming these all the videos with all these girls. Are they sex tourists? Who the fuck are these guys, right? And it's crazy because it's again, you learn this stuff. It takes you all over the world, and you get results anywhere you go. Right? I've been to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to pick up girls. Right? And it's just a mind fuck when you actually realize that you can learn these skills, and learning how to improve your dating life is a skill set you can improve on, and you can take it in the world. And
that's something I think it's really refreshing to hear a kid I mean, I'm not trying to shit on you or anything, but you're 5'4", right?
5'4". Yeah.
5'4". You're 26, but you've been doing this for you said, at least a decade, about a decade now.
Around that, yeah.
And you're of Indian descent, correct?
Yeah.
And look, if I'm gonna be honest, in this sort of space of the internet, whatever call it the red pill space, the manosphere space, the dating space, whatever the hell you want to call this space. I sort of bounce around between a whole bunch of different sort of spaces. There's a lot of dudes out there who make all kinds of excuses.
Sure.
And some of those excuses are their height.
Yeah.
Some of those excuses are their ethnicity, right?
Sure.
Some of those, and you're also a kind of scrawny guy. I'm not going to lie. You're a very scrawny guy.
And this is kind of embarrassing. I weighed myself last week and I weigh 106 pounds, which is
okay,
deeply concerning. I just got back in the gym this week. I mean, gyms have been closed for the past year and a half because of COVID. It's pretty fucked up. And I just started bulking, just got some weight gainer. I'm trying to get up to 120. You know what I mean? But it's pretty fucking insane.
So I'm two of you.
Yeah, no, it's actually insane. It's actually crazy.
But that's the good thing. I'm highlighting this for everyone watching for a specific reason. And the reason is that everyone makes, not everyone, but a lot of guys are making fucking excuses.
Yeah.
They'll use things like I'm too scrawny, I'm too short, I'm Indian, or whatever my ethnicity is some generic excuse. And you have my good friend have taken all this shit and gone well, fuck that out. I don't care, out the window. I'm just going to learn to be an extremely socially adept man. And it's anyone watching this who's not familiar with Justin, just go check out the guy's goddamn Instagram, check out his TikTok, check out his YouTube channel. You'll see what I mean when I say this guy has receipts up the wazoo. Do you do some kind of club promoting work as well?
Yeah, so I've worked in the nightlife industry in Toronto for the last 8 years or so.
Yep.
And essentially I started from the bottom, literally selling tickets on the street, cold approaching random girls, convincing them to purchase these $10 tickets to come to my club, right? And then I ended up, working my way up to doing VIP hosting. So essentially my job is to bring influencer dudes to the club to come party with us, or getting rich guys to spend money on bottles, or getting like hot girls and filling a table with like 20 to 30 hot girls. So like I pretty much worked my way up using the, core fundamentals of, cold approach.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting thing. Like I honestly think that, so you said you started doing that kind of like cold approach for like selling chicks club tickets, like how many years ago? Like, would you say like 6 years ago?
8 years ago.
8 years ago. Like, if there's one job that I think every young man should get, it's like at a young age, if you want to become a killer, it's like either a cold calling job or a cold sales job like you did.
Yeah. So I had a sales job during the day. I was cold calling people selling insurance at like 18 years old. And at nighttime, I would like, literally I would do it for free. I would go meet girls and bring them to the club. And then the club essentially said, hey, if we're giving you all this free access, because essentially I made friends with all the night staff. I just show up early, shake their hands. I would even help them set up. And they just thought I was a nice guy, so they let me in for free. And then they started letting like all my girls in for free. And then they started letting like anyone who'd show up my name and just say, hey, I'm with Justin, and they would let them in for free. So eventually they were like, hey, you have to like actually work for us now, because they weren't even paying me. And it didn't really occur to me that I'd be getting all this money to just like party with hot girls, right? And so I didn't really want to do it. I was like kind of like, no, I don't want to work with you guys, right? But then I remember I was 18 years old. I just turned 18. It's my first nightclub promoting for money, and essentially I ended up getting paid like $1,000 for like a one night party. And I was like, wait, what the fuck? Like that was more money than I had ever made in my entire life, and it made it in a day, right? And it kind of almost changed my brain and my perspective, even when it comes to business and making money. Because like now $1,000 is nothing, right? You can make that in a couple hours, right? And so, all these fundamental skills coming together can really transform your life, right? And I think it really comes down to just learning cold approach and learning how to go out every single day, talk to strangers, talk to random girls, talk to random people. And as crazy as it sounds, even though I'm really good at it and I've had killer results at it, it's still something that always like you'll even feel nervous to do, right? Even now, I've been doing this for years. I'll walk in the street, I see hot girls, and I'm still intimidated by them. But using the right fundamentals and the right process, you can overcome that anxiety and just go do it.
And that's interesting. So you said you started doing this sort of stuff at like 18-ish, right? Had you sort of were you kind of aware of like pickup PUA stuff, kind of before you started doing this professionally? Like, yeah,
exactly. So before I started the nightlife stuff, I wasn't even doing it for the money. I was doing it because I wanted to build the skills. I figured that, as a young guy at like 18 years old, you could, and it doesn't matter what age you are, but I figured that I want to build my skills for later, so that by the time I'm 21, I could travel to Vegas and pick up girls in the club.
Yep.
Right.
It's a testament to like, I mean, you're obviously a successful man, and you've achieved a level of success from what I can gather, financially at your age that a lot of men don't ever achieve, in their like 30s or even 40s, you know, and that's a testament right there, if everyone watching, to the power of social skills, to the power of just basic cold approach.
Yeah, it's crazy, because not only do I cold approach girls, but I also cold approach guys, right? Yeah. So my roommate, he's also my best friend. And we're living in a penthouse. We're living in like a $2 million penthouse in Toronto, overlooking the whole fucking city, okay? Beautiful fucking spot. And I cold approached him 8 years ago in the college gym because I needed cool guys to go out with, to pick up girls with, right? Because literally I had no friends. I was building these skills. I wanted to go out and meet girls. I wanted cool guys to do it with. And I remember consciously, strategically cold approaching him and inviting him to a frat party. Funny enough, his family runs one of the biggest roofing companies in Canada. Very well-off dude. And so even what I've learned from him when it comes to business has taken me so fucking far. And what's really interesting as well is when you're the guy who has a lot of girls around him, a lot of high-level guys want to hang out with you. Right. And so I learned so much from so many high level dudes, right? That, at 25 years old, I pretty much operating almost 7-figure business. Right. And it blew my fucking mind, where it's like, this would not have been possible if I didn't meet the right people to, advise me to, invest money into cryptocurrency, or advise me to, go travel to a certain place, or go advise me on how to like operate and run my business.
Man, and it's like it all started just by walking up and like doing something intimidating, walking up and talking to like a girl. It's like, so it's crazy, when you look at it from the big picture, like it all came back to this one little thing, that first like approach, that first like sacking up and being like, all right, I'm gonna go say hi or whatever, and then like bang, just repeating that same process thousands of times, and voila, you have a skill set that, honest to God, like most men on the planet don't actually have these days.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of rare. And that's why and especially now we're kind of more of a digital age than anything. I mean, and you are, obviously you're a bit younger than me, but what I see a lot of young men who are like indoors playing video games or on their phones all the time watching TikTok, and it's like they're not getting out and exposing themselves to real human interactions as much. Do you see that with your clients?
Absolutely. In fact, I'm like really worried for like future generations, because if I didn't discover this thing, where would I be? I'd probably be like an accountant or like fucking working in a bank or something, right? I got a bachelor's degree in business management, and literally like my life path was good. Like I thought I was going to work at the same bank that my father worked at for 20 years, right? And it's like, thank fucking God I learned this material, because I don't know a single guy who has been part of this industry and stuck at it for years who didn't become extremely successful. So funny enough, one of my first wingmen that I ever went out with to pick up girls with, his name was Thomas. He actually, I think we were talking about this before the stream. He actually was roommates with RSD Madison. Okay. And Thomas, fucking cool fucking dude. And I met him off of a pickup forum, like back in 2014, like early 2014. And so it's 7 years later. And, he went on to travel the world, make millions of dollars, like just crush it, have a hot girlfriend. Right. And I was thinking about it, like everyone we knew in our like little soul circle, we had this little group of guys that we'd all go out with. We call it the Wolf Pack, right? Everyone went on to be extremely successful, right? At least 6-figure entrepreneurs, a lot of them 7-figure entrepreneurs, right? Like everyone just killed it, right? And it makes sense, because if you decide to dedicate your life to something, to a life of self-development, a life of goal setting, a life of, just achieving your fucking dreams, and obviously pushing your comfort zone to talk to a hot girl, you're going to have a great fucking life, right?
I think that last bit, the pushing the comfort zone, I think that's the real kicker, that like, it's like the catalyst for all of it really is because it's such a thing. It really shouldn't be, but just like the idea of going up and talking to a beautiful woman and facing rejection is it pushes guys so far into their comfort zone that everything else kind of pales in comparison to it. Like, if I can do that, then I can make I can make a cold call. If I can do that, then I can like lift, I can push a little bit harder in the gym. If I can do that, I can like go travel to an exotic country.
Yeah.
Like all these other things aren't anywhere near as intimidating anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And it gets to a point where like you just try to see how extreme it can go. Like I remember there was nights where even when I had a girlfriend, I would still go out just to cold approach, just for the skill set, because I knew the skill set is going to make me better as a man. It's going to make me more confident. It's going to make me more grounded. It's going to make me more, of a go-getter. And so I would have nights where I go to the club, and my, my mission for that night was to like only approach girls who are with guys. Right. Or my mission that night was to like walk up to girls and not say like note words, just like body language and facial expressions. Right. So like walk up to girls and try to make out with them without saying anything. Right. And obviously in a consensual, respectful way, but like from the vibe. And, more often than not, you're successful. More often than not. And like I was doing this like 18, 19 years old, like walking up to girls who are with a guy and like taking them off the guy. Right. But then you learn these fundamental skill sets that, it's like, well, now you already know how this works. And now, if that situation were to ever occur, right? Or like, let's say someone's trying to take your girl in the club, like, how to deal with it, right? In a way that you don't have to like fight, because like I'm a small fucking dude, right? So like I'm not gonna like fight the dude, right? So like you learn all these crazy skill sets on how to use your social skills to overcome adversity, overcome challenges, and imagine how that affects business, right? Imagine how that affects relationships, even your family relationships, right? Imagine how that affects every area of your life.
Because that there's something else there. There's like the ability to like influence people socially, and especially the ability to influence women, right, is power.
Yeah.
It's been power since the dawn of time. That's why like wars were fought.
Yeah, absolutely. Women.
Like seriously, like they were like kings were like, I want that bride. I'm gonna go invade his like this, that kind of shit. And dudes were clubbing each other over the heads in caves to get a woman. Like, but the like access to women has always been like one of the most powerful things. And I think you said, I don't know if you said it before we went live, like the idea of, if you're a guy who's surrounded by women, people want to know you. People want to, doors magically start opening.
It's insane. It's another level. Like if you go on my Instagram, just search up Drunk Justin 2 or search up Justin Marc on Instagram. You'd easily find me. Like anyone can find my Instagram, and you can see my party highlight. Okay, there's a thing that says parties. You click on it, and all you see is girls in my place next to my bedroom partying with me. And I mean, the best part is like other girls see that and they automatically feel comfortable to come hang out with me because they know that it's not gonna be a bunch of, if they come hang out, it's not gonna be a bunch of creepy dudes aggressively hitting on them or like harassing them. You know what I mean? They're gonna feel comfortable and safe and respected in the environment. It's a safe space for women to come kick it.
And you know what else? Because obviously, like, you and I would have very different approaches towards women, right? Because I'm a bigger, kind of more intimidating character than you are. Let's be honest. And so, like, and this is something interesting because you kind of have this charm about you. I mean, just even like looking at your videos and looking at your Instagram or whatever, right? You're like, okay, this is a charming guy. He's like, you the impression you get is like, this is a guy it's gonna be fun to be around him. It's gonna be easygoing. It's gonna be smooth and relaxed, and like you said, like the vibe that the girl's going to pick up on, if I'm picking up on it as a guy, the vibe the girl's going to pick up on is kind of the same, you know. And what do you kind of think about, because obviously you've probably coached guys of different kind of statures and backgrounds and strengths, right? Do you see any sort of benefit or I guess difference in the success of a guy who's like, you know, kind of has an approach like you versus a dude who's kind of more like physically imposing and intimidating to women?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's interesting because depending on who you are, where you're coming from, even like your, you know, pre-programmed beliefs from your family or, you know, again, like your size or whatever, there's so many different variables, right? But I'll even notice that a lot of bigger guys, like they're more physically attractive from a woman's first perspective, right? But the problem is they might be too intimidating that they scare the girls away, right? And so I find a lot of bigger dudes, they have to like really tone down like their presence and just make girls completely comfortable so the girls don't feel like this dude could snap my neck at any moment, right?
Because that's kind of the ultimate paradox for being a woman, is that you're attracted to something that can kill you.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, what like a guy wants to, you know, but like it's something that's bigger and stronger and scarier than you.
Yeah,
she actually finds it attractive, right? And it's really interesting you say that, because I've got a couple of my friends. They're like, I don't know if you're familiar with the Tate brothers. They're like 6'6", fucking jacked, like ex kickboxing champions. And they used to, they tell the story where they used to do door-to-door sales, and they realized they weren't very good at it because they'd knock on the door, someone would look through the peephole and be like, there's like a 6'6" like caramel man there. I'm not opening the door. You know, it's like, but someone like, you know, if you come up to the door with this beaming ass white perfect teeth smile, they're like, oh, who's this guy? Bang, right? So it's not all like one way. There are advantages on both sides of the coin here.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, in fact, you can even turn your, you know, negative stereotypes into really positive ones, right? And so, me being a small guy, I literally use like I'm cute, like to like kind of like reel them in, you know what I'm saying? But even things like being an ethnic minority, right? I don't like, you know, it's funny that like, we even have to say that because, you know, in like Southeast Asia or like South Asia, you know, brown people are like the fucking, they're like 1/3 of the planet.
Exactly. You're not really a minority, are you?
It's kind of ridiculous, right? But there's a lot of places in the world where you can actually go to as an ethnic minority. If you're a black guy, Asian guy, brown guy, and you can kill it, okay? For example, Mexico City, right? Or I was there all last year, killed it. I was dating a girl who's a famous actress on a show called La Rosa de Guadalupe. She's like, I think she has like 500,000 followers on TikTok. And it's like, I just cold approached this girl. Why? Because she was like, oh my God, I have it filmed on YouTube, me approaching this girl. And she went on to be my girlfriend. I was like interviewing her for a YouTube video. And in her head, I was exotic. I wasn't like some creepy Indian guy. I was like this exotic, interesting, different guy, different than the typical Mexican dudes she meets on Tinder or whatever, right? And so a lot of places in the world you can go to and you're just different, you're exotic, and it's more attractive, right? And it's also because, you know, you can be like Rajiv Gupta with the fucking turban and like the Indian accent, right? And like you walk up to the girl and be like, hello, like, right? Or you can be like classy, well put together, right? So there's things you can do that break your stereotype. Fashion, right? Like I just went shopping the other day, dropped a few $100 on new clothes. Doesn't even have to be that expensive, right? For like 300, not even like, I think like $220 US, bought a brand new wardrobe, right? Like I don't know, 7 shirts, a couple pants, a pair of shoes, right? And it's like, Now I have like brand new tight fitted clothing that makes it look great, haircut, and even things like piercings, right? It kind of differentiates you, lets you know like I'm a little bit different than other guys of my ethnic, like other guys you might have experienced of my, traditional ethnicity, right? So you're cutting that stereotype, and you're automatically allowing yourself to be perceived a little bit differently.
I was actually gonna. You went down this sort of path on your own. I was actually gonna directly ask you this, like about how you kind of. I was actually gonna ask you like how you, because I'm sure you must get a lot of Indian or Asian, Southeast Asian men as clients.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
you are of that kind of ethnicity. So I was gonna ask you like, how do you teach them to kind of get past the hang-ups they might have about white women don't like Indian guys or whatever it might be. And you just gave a great start there, which was like you can go to places where you are actually exotic. Like people live in this sort of, I mean, especially in the West, we live in this like bubble of like the West is the only culture that exists, and it's not. Like you can go everywhere else. I'll give a quick example. Like I'd never even planned to go here, but I ended up in Morocco earlier this year. A beautiful country, love the country, love the people, and I experienced genuine white privilege when I was there. Like I walk into a restaurant, the manager like runs over to me. He's like, "Oh, hello, sir, come here." Like he's got this friggin' parrot, and he's like, "Here, have our parrot." He puts his parrot on my arm, and I'm like, okay. He's like, come to the kitchen. Like, do you like everything here? Here, have some free sample. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And it's just like, because you're exotic. You're like no like white Australians travel to Morocco. Like it's just not done, especially during COVID. So it's this weird thing. Like you can find places around the world where you are absolutely the novel thing, and that's part of women's biology. They're kind of programmed to like be attracted to the new and the different, and like for like genetic purposes, right? So you can play with that.
Interesting because it goes farther than that. You don't need to travel outside of the West. You just need to develop your personality, right? Because you're in Miami, I'm in Toronto. Let's say you're in New York, LA, Toronto, Miami, or any big city. A lot of these cities are melting pots of different ethnicities, cultures, religions, races, right? And so if I meet a girl from anywhere in Latin America, in Toronto, I'm out in the club, like let's say I'm at Latin night at a club, right? I can, first of all, I speak a bit of Spanish now, so I can find that common ground, right? I can also kind of humble brag, being like, mi ex-novia, my ex-girlfriend, is an actress in this like famous show, right? And like, automatically they're like, holy shit, it's like high status, right? I could talk about how I lived in this country. I could talk about how my roommate's from Uruguay, right? You can always find those familiarity, common ground kind of like things like hook people in, right? In these melting pot type cities, right? And so you automatically make yourself this high status dude situationally, even on the cold approach.
And so is one of the things you tell like your clients who, like I said before, who might be like Indians or Asians or Southeast Asians, is one of the first things you teach them is to like kind of redo their style and their wardrobe?
Absolutely. Like, well, the main thing we actually teach is how to have the right mindsets and belief systems, because a lot of guys come into it not even believing they can get results. Right. And it's like, if you don't think you get results, there's nothing I can fucking do for you if you're going to self-sabotage before we even fucking try. Right.
But that's what I was kind of getting at the very beginning when I said, like, there's a lot of guys who will make excuses based upon their height, their ethnicity, whatever. And I like that you just said that. You're like, look, we got to get rid of that shit first. Yeah.
So the thing is, your excuse might be valid, right? Like you might have excuses as well, right? But how does it help you? Is it going to help you get results? Like you could have an excuse that you're too tall or you're too jacked and girls are scared, right? You could have an excuse. One of my buddies who actually does really well, he started telling me that he has problems with girls who aren't white because they're racist, because now white people are being oppressed because of like, the liberal agenda. You know what I mean?
Man, it's Look, I'm not gonna lie. It's hard being as sexy as fuck as I am, Justin. It's a daily struggle. So in your travel, so you said you've been to like, I think it's 50 plus countries
around that, yeah.
Around the world, and obviously you've probably talked to women in every single one of these countries.
Yeah, pretty
much, right? What have you noticed? Like, what is it more? Are women more similar or are they more different? I mean, I've done like something like 22 countries myself, so I have my own answer. I'm just want to curious about yours. Do you think women are more similar than they are different, or they are more different in all these cultures?
Best way I can describe it is the game doesn't really change where you go, but the culture and the people change, the language changes, the religion changes. So there's certain places that are going to be more like, for example, if you go to Saudi Arabia and try to pick up girls, like you're probably not going to have a great time, right? But like if you go to like most places if they speak English, it's just gonna be easier, obviously, right? But I definitely find, in my opinion, women everywhere fundamentally, desire the same things, right? Where it's like they desire a confident man, charisma, anything that shows status. So status can be different depending where you go, right? Like, for example, in Toronto, like, dude, even though I make great fucking money at 25 years old, do you think I can compete with the dude down the street who's like 45 and has a boat? Right? It's like, I know this one dude who has dude, I have friends who have boats and like, they just show up with a boat and girls just show up. Right. Yeah. It's like, I can't really flex my money, right? Like, even if you have $1 million in the bank in Toronto, that's not a whole lot of money, right? Versus, personality development, charisma, potential as a man, or even access to like just cool parties and events and cool networking and stuff like that. So to answer your question, I would say like yes and no. I think women are a lot more similar than they are different ever in the world, right?
I think it was interesting what you mentioned about like different status symbols. Going back to my time in Morocco, there was this interesting, quirky status symbol that I didn't know about, and I only found out because I have a friend who lives there, and he told me about it. And that is license plates.
Oh,
like.
Right.
On the Moroccan license plates, there's like the number, and then there's like, but at the very beginning of the license plate, there's like a 1-digit number. It's like a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, 6, right? And if you have the number 1, it means your car was registered in like the capital city in a certain spot, and that is like the highest status symbol you can have on your car in the whole country. So it doesn't matter what your car is, as long if your license plate has that like area code on it. They're like, oh, he's a top dog. He's like someone important. He's a politician. He's someone influential. And I thought that is the fun. Like, that's interesting how like every culture is going to have something like that, some kind of weird little flex.
For sure. Well, here's a really good one, right? If you come from the Western world, like I was born and raised in Toronto. I speak English. I have a college degree. I like write research papers. I speak articulate English. So when people hear me speaking English in random countries, they either want to rob me or be my friend. Right? Because, it's a status thing. I was walking, I swear to God, crazy story. So I was with my buddy, Luis Micardo. Okay. He has a show called To Catch a Cheater. Is another YouTube channel called Life Lessons with Luis. Really successful dude. And he's actually done game for about 20 years. And it was me, Luis, and Bradicus, right? Bradicus is one of like the really, really high level PUA guy. He's gone canceled off the internet. So he doesn't really exist on the internet anymore. But the three of us
I'm familiar with the guy's name. Yeah.
Cool. So Bradicus and Luis Micardo and I we were in Spain. We're doing a coaching program there. We flew to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. And I was walking down the street in Ethiopia. And honestly, man, it was not the nicest place. It was like, pretty sketchy, pretty run down. Even like the downtown core, it literally just felt like a slightly industrialized village. And I'm walking down the street and I'm talking to Luis and I'm just telling him a joke. And this girl, like I was telling him a joke about how I was fucking with someone, right? And this girl walks up to me and she's like, can I fuck with you? And I'm like, wait, what? Like, are you like an escort or something? She's like, no, I'm an engineer. And I'm like, oh, and like, you just want to have like sex with me because you find me attractive? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. And like, just the fact that she heard me speaking English walking down the street, right? It's like a status thing where it's like literally like instant attraction.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep, that's probably what was causing some of that stuff for me in Morocco, was just the fact that I'm blurting out in English all the time, like obvious foreigner.
Now let's talk about how you can actually do this in your own city, right?
Yeah, go on.
Because status, like, is status even real? Right? Is it even like? Here's a good example of this, right? It's like if I hang out with one of my buddies who has like a $40 million net worth, it's like compared to him, isn't he higher status? But like I will outgame them, right? It's like why? Yeah. It's because of perceived status, right? It's not about what you think is cool or status, or what the guys think is cool or what status. It's what the girls around you perceive to be status in the moment, right? So having like a YouTube audience and a TikTok following, right, is high status. Having like, some bottles of liquor, at a bar in my place, just laying around could be certain status. Having access to free club cover or like certain party could be status, right? Having cool Instagram stories. So you can start from anywhere. Like, it doesn't matter where you're at. You can actually make yourself have status now, right? For example, in Miami, anyone could become a club promoter in South Beach, sell tickets on the fucking beach for like $20, post it every night on their Instagram story. And when girls see that, certain girls are going to perceive that to be high status and come hang out and come tag along and think you're a high value dude just because you're doing this cool thing and you're creating your own like party in reality, and they're going to want to hook up, right?
There's something interesting there with, you're comparing like, okay, this dude, we've got like $40 million, but you're going to outgame him, right? A lot of guys kind of get hung up on the idea that, like women only want money, or women are only after the guy who's rich, or blah, 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 right? And the interesting thing is, right, women aren't accountants. Yeah. Like a woman can't look at you or look at me and know what our bank balance is.
Yeah, they don't. They don't
have a clue. But what they have instead, Justin, they have like cues. So it might be your fashion, it might be your car, it might be the fact that you have a boat, it might be the fact that you have a table service, it might, whatever it is, right? These little
your body language.
Could be your body language.
Facial expressions. It could be the way you speak and carry yourself.
So she's like pinging off all of these little subtle things to determine in the back of her mind an approximation for how much resources you have. And it's not even necessarily like cash. It's like also what's his network like? Who are the kind of people that this guy hangs around?
That's actually more important as well.
Yes, I was just about to say that, even more important than the dollars in the bank. Because that's influence and that's power. That's real power. Yeah, because dollars don't do much unless you can get people to do things, right? I was going to go down a little different rabbit hole now, and I was going to say because there's on your website there was like 4 main things that you kind of like pitch to like when you take guys out and you're coaching and you teach them and stuff. And I thought it was I've never seen anyone else sort of summarize it like that. Actually, I've seen them summarize the 4th one, but the first few I really liked. And you talk about these ideas of like self-love.
Yep, absolutely.
Developing elite level social skills, mastering emotions, and becoming a leader. And I've seen guys teach sort of variants of those, but I've never seen someone phrase it like self-love. Can you dive in a little bit deeper on like your idea of self-love and kind of what you, or how you define that and how you try to instill that in your clients?
Awesome. So this is a great question, because I would say this is where guys go from like super low level to super fucking high level, right? Toronto's opening up next week. I've got a boot camp coming up, and one of my assistant coaches is flying in to come work with us, right? And what he specializes in is something called NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and he also does like hypnosis type training, okay? And the reason I want him to fly in is so we can do this with the clients. Essentially what we do is it's almost like we like surgically remove mental blockages and traumas that are stopping these clients from getting like absolute killer results. A couple of years ago, right before COVID, I had a student of mine. His name was James, and James lived in Montreal. So I, flew down to Montreal to work with James. And the problem is James was like jacked. He had a black belt in like Taekwondo. He was tall as fuck. He was like a 6'3" white dude, really good looking, and he dressed incredibly well. So he had everything that would be like, this guy's an attractive guy. James hadn't gone laid in 5 years. And the only time he had ever had sex was with a girl who initiated with him, right? Because like, eventually, if you're a good looking dude, some girl's gonna come around and try to game you, I guess, right? But James is so in his own fucking way that he was just self-sabotaging and screwing himself up. And this is where we get a little bit woo-woo and almost like, I don't want to even say spiritual, but it's psychological, right? Because what we realized is James had a mental blockage that was stopping him from getting results. Right. On the first day of the program, I noticed that, he was like kind of rejecting the girls that were like hitting on him. Okay. So on the program, it was me, James, a couple other students, and my girlfriend at the time. I'd actually taught my girlfriend game. Her name was Laura. She was from Mexico. She would travel around the world with me, teaching pickup with me. It was awesome. And the 3 of us were like teaching James. The first night of the program, James running out, making out with girls, getting great results. Pretty typical, right? On the second night of the program, James took a girl home, but he didn't close the deal. Right? Because he, again, he had that mental blockage. Like he just didn't feel worthy that girls like him. Okay. So I kind of have a rule in my programs where I'm not allowed to pull unless the students pull first. So since James pulled on the second night, even though he didn't close, I talked to Laura because she was, my girlfriend at the time, and she was into girls. She was bisexual and she liked having threesomes. And I taught her game over the course of like 6 months. I brought her on all my programs, and honestly, her game was like arguably even better than mine. Like it was crazy. Like she was fucking crazy. Right. And so on the third night of the program, we met a girl, pulled a threesome with her in the club bathroom. Okay. And James saw that. The next day I sat him down, broke it down, how it happened, why it happened, the thoughts, beliefs, mindsets. Right. And James kind of took that in. But then I kind of really was trying to figure out what's this mental blockage that's stopping James from having this result that he wants to get, right? It's just like pulling and closing. And we figured out that when he was in 7th grade, when he was 12 years old, James, built up the courage to tell his childhood crush that he likes her. He has a crush on her and ask her out. And not only did she reject him, she shamed him and told everyone, like, oh my God, this guy's a fucking loser. And it caused him this like deep-rooted trauma. So we did something called trauma release meditation. We helped him let it go, release it, and we pretty much just unwired it so it wasn't even an issue anymore. He doesn't have to worry about it anymore. And I shit you not, Stirling, that night, James goes out to the club. I witnessed this with my own eyes. He approaches a cute blonde girl. She's with like a cute Asian friend. And I'm like, okay, cool. He's going to pull a girl. Awesome. They're sitting on the couch. He's making out with the blonde girl. Then I noticed the Asian girl starts making out with him as well. Then I noticed he took them to the bathroom. And, lo and behold, he had a threesome. This kid hadn't gone laid. He's a 20-year-old kid. He hasn't gone laid in 5 years. And he pulls a threesome within 4 days of coaching, right? Because he was able to release this trauma, overcome his mental blockages, and obviously get coached to actually do this stuff as well. Because he saw me, witnessed me do it, and I explained to him exactly the process of how I would do it with my ex-girlfriend at the time. And, he recreated the result for himself, right? And so through self-love really comes down to, learning to love yourself fully, not judge yourself for your past, not judge yourself for bad things that are happened to you, right? And not be a victim of your circumstances, essentially, and just accept yourself fully. Love yourself so full that, everywhere you go, you just share it. You just give it to the fucking world. And I mean, you see me smiling all the time. It's just because I'm feeling so much good emotion generating it inside myself. I'm just giving it out everywhere, right? And that's what we teach our clients to do, is just like give that to the fucking world, feel it fully, give it out, and you're gonna get amazing feedback from that.
What do you or do you think do you teach guys anything about like kind of self-talk, like the words that the way that you always speak about yourself, and the thing that you kind of conjure your own existence?
Absolutely. So one thing we do with a lot of our students, and I even have a YouTube video coming out about this, it's called affirmations. Yep. So we teach affirmations, and I actually, I do this. I create personal affirmations for every single student who comes into my programs, because it's insane. It like literally brainwashes you to achieve higher level results, right? And so it comes down to reprogramming your subconscious brain. And we're getting really woo and deep here, but this is the stuff that actually works, that allows you to get killer results, right? So when a lot of my friends are in their 30s and 40s, right? And they see the way I'm living or the results I'm getting, and they wonder why, I did it a lot quicker. It's honestly because of affirmations. It's because of self-talk. It's because of, waking up every day motivated, because you're wiring your brain with the right beliefs and mindsets, right? So self-love really comes down to respecting, like, for example, I don't drink alcohol. I've been drinking 3 years. I do that because I want to respect my body and my health, right? Reading, meditation, things like affirmations, things like travel, not spending money on yourself because you're depressed, you're trying to cope or fill a void, but investing into your life and your future to build a better life for yourself and a better life for those around you, right? And these are all those things that, allow you to develop that self-love, right? It also allows you to become a leader, because, when you're investing in yourself, you can actually create an amazing environment for yourself and the people around you as well, right?
So how does that kind of tie in to, do you see that self-love aspect kind of ties into this idea you had of mastering your own emotions, and like, or is for you, like, mastering emotions, is that kind of about getting over that initial anxiety that guys tend to have?
Mastering your emotions is about getting over the initial anxiety that's coming from inside, but it's also about not being reactive to what's in your environment, right? Let's say you're out talking to a girl, and great example. Yesterday I was filming a street interview. I love to do these like interviews where I interview girls about their opinion on dating and, relationship dynamics. And, I approached a girl, and she was with the guy, and this guy like almost like charged at me. And like, I didn't react at all. I just like looked at him and I'm like, oh, is this your boyfriend? Right. And so he kind of like, I guess he was expecting a different reaction. He kind of stormed off. And pretty much the way I broke it down was this girl and her like friend zone dude they're coming from outside Toronto, like a few hours north. And they were just kind of spending the weekend together in Toronto, but they're not together. They're not dating. The guy's essentially friend zone. And in his head, this is his chance to make this girl his girlfriend, and in her head she just wants like this beta orbiter to like take care of everything and take care of her, right? Yep. And so again, it's like you can get defensive, right? Or you can just like be completely unreactive, where it's almost like you don't feel the bad vibes, right? You're mastering your own emotions in the sense that you're at the cause, not the effect. You're at the cause of your own emotions, not the effect of the external environment.
I like that, man. It's because I think I talk a lot about masculinity on my channel, and I talk, obviously that's kind of something I'm really passionate about. And I think in today's day and age, like, guys are sort of taught this idea of like feels before reals. They're sort of taught to like kind of emote in a like kind of like women to a degree. And I think that almost stoic aspect of life of being like a tree has deep roots in the ground and you can't like blow it over. And that's kind of like, that's how I imagine like a dude who is in control of his emotions.
For sure.
Versus say a guy who isn't is kind of like a leaf that's just being like blown away in the wind, and he's just susceptible to whatever his environment dictates for him. Definitely. Right? But the tree is just like, he's there and he's rock solid, and like he can withstand, the elements as long as his roots are deep.
Like, women are going to throw shit at you, shit tests, testing, like all these like congruence tests, like playing all these games, seeing who you trying to see who is this dude. You know what I mean? And so like just not taking shit, but dealing with it in a way that isn't confrontational as well is really important. So I think using humor, so mastering your own emotions is also humor, because that is one of the best ways to, transcend negativity. Right? Let's say you're hanging out with a girl and she throws shit at you, or you say something that offended her. You just don't take it too seriously, and she'll stop taking herself so seriously. You know what I mean?
So what do you think is kind of like the balance between, this sort of, I don't want to say woo-woo, but the more like mental side of it, like the affirmations and the self-love and the mastering emotions, versus the actual like nuts and bolts kind of tactical side of pickup? Like how much when you coach guys, how much do you sort of split your time between those two different elements?
It's got to be mostly taking action based, right? A lot of guys will sit around doing meditation and reading self-help books and, fucking meditating on their emotions and doing affirmations and even things like working out. And then they don't actually go out and talk to girls, right? Yeah. And it's like, okay, your excuse is COVID or whatever, right? But it's like, look, then you can be on Tinder, or you can be on, what I'll even do? I'll even go on like websites like Omegle or like Chat Roulette. Right. I coach clients to do this just to practice social skills.
That's great. That is a great fucking bit of advice. Damn, that's good.
Just to practice speaking to people, right? And if you're not taking action, then like, what the fuck are you doing, right? You're not getting better, and you got to lean on your comfort zone every single day. What I recommend most of my clients to do when they're starting out is do something called the 30-day challenge, where you go out every single day for 30 days to talk to girls, to approach strangers, men or women, talk to anybody, just approach strangers, have conversations, do it in a social way. And obviously, if you see a hot girl you like, try to, push it any way you can, right? Try to respectfully and consensually move it towards an intimate interaction, right?
What do you think is like the most common kind of, I'll kind of rephrase this in a second. So when I was coming up, right, when I was a younger man in my 20s, I wasn't very good with chicks, right? I was like shy and nervous and all that kind of crap. And I used to go on the PUA forums as well. And weirdly enough, me and my best friend also met from like a PUA forum. That's kind of bizarre. And he's like a millionaire now as well. I'm like, like everything you said at the very beginning, I was like, damn, this is ringing true. Yeah. But I always kind of had this sort of idea in my head that there's like, we're all born like perfect. And then we just get these like layers of bullshit like put on.
You're like fucking reading my brain, bro. You're in my head right now, man. This is like all the thoughts I was having this week. You're right. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's kind of like when we do things like, self-improvement of any kind, right? But in this example, pickup, all you're really doing is like peeling away this layer of bullshit, this like false belief, this false narrative. And for a lot of guys, I've at least seen that it's really like one thing that they're kind of like, they're a nice guy.
Yeah.
They're not a total idiot. They're not an idiot, or they're not like totally socially like incapable. Right? They have friends. So there's like, when it comes to just interacting with women, there's typically only like one thing that they need to like fix. Mm-hmm. And I know for me, it was
like 1, 2, or 3 things you need to fix. Like,
my question was going to be, what do you see as the most common ones?
It could be the most like ridiculous things. Like, well, usually the main thing is like approaching girls. So like, we're not going to count that. We're not going to count the fact of like going out of comfort zone to approach random women, cold approach, day game, night game, where I'm counting that. But, that's the main one is like getting like actually saying, hey, I'm going to be the guy who actually approaches women.
Yep.
Okay. But it could be anything from, and everyone usually has their own issues. Like it's usually these small little fucking things or that like they need to work on, or these like major 3 fundamental things. Like it could be self-esteem issues. It could be, like you mentioned, like inner traumas. Because, we are born as these like perfect children, perfectly pure and clean. And then the world corrupts us. You get these weird traumas. You get bullied when you're in 4th grade and it fucks you up mentally, right? I don't know. Who the fuck knows what it could be? Your dad beats you with cables on your 10th birthday and now you're like fucked up and have daddy issues, right? And it's like trauma release meditation is so like, I'm actually with my friend Hannah here. She came over today you can just say hi. You can wave. Out of frame. She literally hit me up. She's like, let's do some meditation today. And then like just for our live stream, we were talking about like, I was talking about this like trauma release meditation, because when you release traumas, it allows you to peel back those layers. And it's not necessarily that you forget what happened to you, but it doesn't affect you as much. Okay. It's like, you'll remember the memories, but it doesn't trigger you. I studied something called Vipassana meditation. It's an ancient meditation technique taught by the Buddha. Okay. And the way you learn it is you go into a forest and meditate for 10 days straight. No phone, no internet, no talking to people, no technology, no speaking, no reading, 10 days of meditation, over 10 to 15 hours a day. It's fucking intense. I've done it twice. One of the hardest things anybody can do. It really, you can see I'm a guy who talks a lot, and it's fucking tough, bro. It's intense, right? And I shit you not, my dating results were better than they ever have been when I came out of it, right? Because it honestly puts you on another level, because what you're doing is you're essentially like purifying your mind. You are getting rid of all these inner mental blockages, letting go of these past traumas. So even though you remember them, they don't really affect you, right?
The way I've always I've been taught about like meditation in general and thoughts and stuff is like, well, the first big mental shift that I had as a young man was, somebody said this phrase: if you are your thoughts, then who's the person listening to them? Which is a big like disconnect, right? You're like, oh wait, like my thoughts are this thing that I'm observing. I am not them, right? And the second distinctive thing that I got taught was, try to imagine yourself at like, if you're at a train station, right? And your thoughts are like trains rocking up at the station, and you don't have to get on them. You can just let them move on, right? You can choose which ones you decide to get on and follow.
Absolutely.
Right. What are your thoughts on fighting and being kind of like combat ready? Because I'm of the opinion that like I like to box. Like boxing and fighting is kind of is like meditative in a way, because you can't be thinking about like your tax returns when someone's throwing a punch at your face. You can't be like, oh, Susie was such a bitch to me in high school. Bang! Like, you're gonna get knocked out. You've got to be there and right and present. You know what I mean? Do you see like a sort of like a correlation between like fighting and meditation in a way?
I wouldn't even say I'm a fitness expert, so I don't think I'm even qualified to talk about it. Right. But I've done a little bit of Muay Thai, a little bit. Like I probably did like a month of Muay Thai before I got in a fight at a bar and a dude broke my finger. Okay, like literally, that's my experience with like martial arts. Is like that was pretty much it, and it's definitely something I want to get into. I definitely see martial arts as an extremely crazy high level path of mastery, and from what I've heard and understand, it would parallel meditation. Right, it's definitely similar, and I think every man should be combat ready. Right? I think and so like that's actually one thing. That's one of my goals for this year is to get fucking jacked, put on a fuck ton of weight. Like my goal for the next 2 to 3 months is to put on about 20 to 30 pounds and start. I have a really good friend who he's a Muay Thai teacher, and so I want to start learning Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai to be combat ready. Right, because the crazy, like you can have all the girls, you can have all the money. And then like, some dude beats the shit out of you. I've gotten my ass kicked. I've been put in a wheelchair. I had a dude jump me, right? Because I hooked up with his girlfriend. I swear to God, in 2016, a girl I was like dating, I guess she would like talk about me to her new boyfriend. So like he saw me out and about and he jumped me and he put me in a wheelchair. He went to fucking jail. I got money. I got a lawyer settlement from it. I was in a fucking wheelchair. And it like occurred to me, it's like, if I had known martial arts, I could have handled myself because the guy wasn't that bigger than me. Right.
Yeah.
And so the way I see it is like everything you have can be taken away from you. So yeah, I think every man should be combat ready. I definitely agree with what you said that, learning martial arts probably parallels meditation. I don't think it's a substitute. It would be like saying like business is parallels dating, but you can't really, you got to have all parts of your life handled, right? You got to have your finances handled. You got to have your dating life handled, your social life handled, your family life handled, your fitness, your health, and even martial arts, right? I think I've got it all except like fitness right now and martial arts. That's pretty much it, right? And
well,
so,
you can't be good at everything, Justin.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying. I don't think you'd even need to. And again, this is why I think it's so important to practice social skills, right? Because you can diffuse any situation. Any situation.
Like that's a big skill in and of itself. Is like nobody wants to get into a fight, really. And it's like if you're the guy who can like smooth talk a motherfucker out of it, it's like.
I think it's important to. I mean, as a man, I don't know about you, man. Sometimes I'll be out and about, I'll be having a fucking bad day, and I just tell someone to fuck off. And next thing you know, they're trying to fight me, right? Like I remember specifically right before COVID, some drunk dude, like I don't know what came out of my mouth, like some dude with a bunch of friends walking down the street, and I literally said the words "fight me," and like this guy's a foot taller than me, and he swung on me, and I dodged it, and I was like, "Holy shit! Like what the fuck?" Right? And like I realized I was not ready for that, and if this dude hit me, he would have knocked me the fuck out, right? And like, I'm like, oh shit, my bad. I'm like, I think I just like kind of diffused it and like pieced out because it you know, these things happen. I don't know. Like it just kind of happens when everyone's drinking and whatnot. Right. And like, I don't know, too many dudes in a room, it kind of just happens. Right. And it's like, if you're combat ready, I think you also have this subconscious thing to like not fight because you know you can win. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I noticed with a lot of my friends. And so I definitely think it's another skill every man needs to learn just to protect yourself and protect the people around you.
Well, we live in a world which is so, comparatively to like the sort of environment where we evolved from, or like even like 100 years ago, we live in a very non-violent society, relatively. For sure. Big. So we're not really accustomed to violence on like a day-to-day basis, right? Yeah. My friend Craig, Abu American, he has this saying like, if I can beat you up and take your shit, then it's not really your shit. You know, like, and that's kind of his mentality. He's a fighter, so that's kind of his mentality. Is like, all right, if I can physically impose my will on another man, then everything he has is effectively mine. Then that's not really true in like today's day and age with the legal system, but that sure as hell was true not that long ago in history. Like that's a reality of what it was like being a man, or like, you know, living as humans, you know, not that long ago. But that's cool. I'm pleased to hear that you're like, yeah, you want to get jacked and get jacked and juicy and tanned. I mean, you already got the tan thing down, but you get some hands on you. Justin, thank you so much for coming on, man. Where can everybody find you? Tell them what your YouTube channel is, your Instagram, your TikTok. Let them know where they can find all your stuff.
Awesome. And, so my YouTube channel is Justin Marc. If you just
we're going to put a link to your stuff down below as well.
Awesome. So YouTube.com/Justin Marc, TikTok.com/DrunkJustin, Instagram.com/DrunkJustin2. But if you want to find everything, you just go to JustinMarc.com.
Yep.
Okay. And it leads to my link tree, and you have access to everything. Everything.
I find it funny that you don't drink anymore, but you all your socials are Drunk Justin.
Yeah. So how I actually started game was in my head, Drunk Justin was who I wanted to be, because I would notice that like in person, I was like very shy. I had like the Justin Bieber haircut. It was like very like kind of like emo and like shy. I wouldn't talk to people. And when I got drunk, I would be like the most social, charismatic person in the room. I was just running up to everyone being like, hi. It was like really cute. It was a cute, adorable little like 15-year-old drunk, like fucking just talking to everyone, right? And I wanted to be that sober, right? So I don't know, like Drunk Justin. That's what it was. But yeah, like I realized eventually that you don't need the alcohol to develop these skills, or the charisma, or the confidence, or the personality development.
There's an interesting parallel with that. With I don't know if you know Kobe Bryant. He used to like go into like his character was the Black Mamba.
Okay.
Whenever it was like game time and it was like, you know, the game was on the line, he really needed to pull something out of the bag. He went into that space of like, okay, now I'm not Kobe anymore. I'm the Black Mamba now. And that was like his sort of mental space for like, performing. So it's kind of a similar thing with like Drunk Justin, I think.
I think it really helps, man. Like having that like almost like alternative personality. You know what I mean?
I mean, like I'm like, I never really looked at like Stirling Cooper as a different personality. It's always the same as like me, because Stirling Cooper is not my real name. It's like but I understand that mentality for sure. Yeah, cool. I think it's very powerful for a lot of guys.
Awesome.
Anyway, man, thank you so much for your time, Justin.
Thanks for having me on, man. I want to have you on my channel as well.
Let's do it. Let's do it, man. I can talk about laying pipe and all kinds of things like that. You have a good night, all right?
You too, man.